All right, so it's June 17, 2020. I already know what it is. It's the Backstage Brawl. I'm your host, the Golden Child. We got the People's Champ. We got the Diamond Cutter. We got Kid Dynamite here today, bringing you some wrestling news of the week. Now, after our last episode this past week, there was almost immediately a news report in regards to Vince McMahon basically stripping Paul Heyman of his creative job on Monday Night Raw. Now Bruce Pritchard is now in charge of both SmackDown and Raw. And we also have Mustafa Ali on Raw. So a lot of news that was going on behind the scenes before we even get to on the scenes. And it looks like People's Champ with his glistening belt. He seems to have some qualms about this. So go ahead. The floor is yours, buddy.
Where do I begin? First off, I did not like the fact that Vince threw Paul Heyman under the bus. You shouldn't have done it. Like, there's no reason for you to put him under the bus when he's doing the job you hired him for. And you can't give him any, flack because he has ideas that you may not seem to think that are good or conducive to the company because, you've seen what he's been trying to establish. With the rise of Shayna Baszler and other stars that don't normally get any airtime. And Vince, he's been focusing on the wrong things and constantly meddling and nitpicking at the type of progression that's been going on. And we knew it was going to be like a slow build in terms of what Heyman was trying to introduce in terms of Monday Night Raw. And it's just unfortunate that it didn't work in his favor, and he had to kind of keep going back and forth between Vince and the creative room. So in terms of what Vince has done, you can't just go from praising a man in terms of how he was earlier last year in a conference call to basically making him the fall guy this year. Now, I will say, Bruce Pritchard's done an okay job on SmackDown. I'm not going to say that he's done a great job, but in terms of creative, Bruce Pritchard is a trusted name. He is a trusted person backstage. I would rant on it, but we'll be screaming it till the cows come home. But my thing is Vince has to stop meddling in terms of what is organic. I know not having a crowd has hurt, stars and hurt the ratings for the TV. But at the same time, if you see something that's organic, let it ride. It's a gamble. 50-50 don't work. Sure. It's okay if it doesn't work. But it does not give you the right to kind of just throw somebody under the bus, in that fashion. Now, bringing Bruce Pritchard on, he's done a pretty good. He did a pretty good Raw this past week. I will say that. It's just a matter of you can still utilize people backstage. It just doesn't have to be one sole person. And even if you get last say, you have to basically meet these people, especially in creative, halfway. You can't just be like, oh, it's not good shit and just tear it up and then start up a new show. It puts everybody on edge. We didn't see Aleister Black at all last week. And that's one of the people that Paul Heyman was pushing for. There was a lot of stars he's been pushing for. He didn't see them much last week, and those are things that are going to be, problematic as time progresses because Raw's been trash for the last 4 years, I would probably say. And ongoing. Sure, you have one good episode, in that stretch, but at the same time, you are the reason why the show is not doing well because constant meddling and the inconsistencies backstage with how creative is done.
Kid Dynamite, we before we got on, we had a conversation a while back in regards to just this. I believe we were doing the reaction show to Backlash, and we had this conversation. You happen to see Solid Monster, shout out to Solid Monster on YouTube, his podcast, and you mentioned his pretty much just telling the story about how 25 years later, it's kind of the same thing. Can you basically please share those thoughts?
Yeah, Solid Monster made a mention about how 25 years ago, so about a year removed from the Diesel era of WWE and all that, or maybe a little bit after. It's just they had Bill Watts be brought in as part of creative. yes, that same Cowboy Bill Watts. And Vince was trying to take a step back from creative, focus more on the business aspect of the WWE. And Bill Watts didn't last more than maybe a couple months, I believe. And that was 25 years ago. So Vince was in his 50s or around his 50s. And this was prior to the Attitude Era, right? This was basically just to maybe not even, it's 95. So about the next year, they were starting to head into that direction later the next year. So, you know, that was during a time when Vince was younger and able to be more in charge of things. But even then, he wasn't willing to let go when he purposely made it clear that he wanted to let go, which is kind of ironic because, you know, after watching the Last Ride documentary about, you know, all the, you know, the thematic nature of the documentary of how Taker is having hard times letting go in the ring, Vince has a hard time letting go because this is just something he's been doing since he was like around our age. You know, like he's been in the business for a very long time. And to that extent, there's a part of me that can empathize with him. But in the same regard, you're like in your 70s, dude. I mean, most people in their 70s aren't very reasonable when it comes to decisions like this. We all know that. But it's like, when it comes to Paul Heyman's dealt with Vince McMahon before. He's known how to manage and navigate with Vince, and he's butted head with Vince. He's probably up there in the top 5 of people who've had to butt head with Vince in terms of just creative alone, right? Paul Heyman was trying to make a foundation for you for the future because you've spent the past 10 years relying on nostalgia acts, whether it be the ones that we love or the ones we didn't ask for. A whole bunch of nostalgia acts. Creatively, you have to let go and give it a chance. Your company's in a position now where you can take as many risks with TV as you pretty much want. I know ratings, like people say ratings don't matter. They do because you have contracts and obligations, right? But at the same time, like this is the quarantine. And even the past couple of years, it's like you've been experimenting just as much with some of the stars you've tried, like with Roman. How many years have you gone pushing Roman in a position where it's like, the fans have repeatedly said we don't want him pushed like this, right? But you still took that risk. How many years did it take for you to realize that you have certain people that the fans actually do enjoy, like a Daniel Bryan? Like, for every risk that WWE is not willing to take, and people say, oh, you can't take this risk, they're doing the same thing with people who are just as risky to work with. And the fact that Paul Heyman was building a foundation for you, the fact that there was so much representation on the show with guys like Apollo Crews, Bobby Lashley getting a fair shine, MVP doing his thing, right? Aleister Black being used in a way where it's like, okay, he can at least be consistently on TV and people can get an idea of who he is. The fact that there's so many different fresh faces on there that, you know, if you don't develop them any further, of course, in retrospect, they're going to be looked at as like jobber talent, right? Because you didn't do anything. But you never know until you try. And you've tried with a lot of other people and sacrificed a lot of talents for the sake of pushing some of those same people or pushing a narrative, as we saw with people like John Cena, as we saw with people like Charlotte, as we saw with people like Roman. How many people how many careers got altered for the purpose of you getting those 3 names? 2 of which aren't even there right now. I'm just saying. Heyman's been the fall guy a couple times in these situations. He shouldn't have been the fall guy here. USA even understood the Heyman situation all too well. Randy's brought that up a couple times. I'm just saying, I think that Vince being in panic mode and constantly looking for something to entertain him because it is an audience of one, that should be put on the back burner going forward with creative. Everybody agrees with that. And they need to start doing something fresh. And the fact that they had something fresh going and now there's no guarantee of how it's going to go, I know Bruce Pritchard is a very important person in the history of the creative for Vince. He's one of his go-to guys, but it's going to be a lot harder to manage 2 shows than it would be singling in on one. So I'm not going to sit here and expect it to be perfect or as good as SmackDown when he has to handle both of them week by week and then deal with Vince for both of them week by week.
So, you know, to touch on your point, you know, every show is not going to basically have, you know, big reaction as opposed to this past week. Randy alluded to Monday Night Raw. I want to get into that in a really, really quick segment that, you know, I thought up. Essentially, book it or bury it. Essentially, you know, it's just a quick topic, you know, for all the different type of of storylines on Raw that is going on. And, honestly, we could kind of realize and see based on what we see, like if we thumbed up about it or yeah about it. So kicking it off with the biggest angle, arguably the biggest angle in all of WWE right now, Randy Orton, Christian, Edge, and now Ric Flair. A little Ric Flair flavor. How you guys liking that? Are you booking it? You burying it? Let me start off with Diamond Cutter. Tag in
I'm
Diamond.
booking it. I'm booking it. Listen, Randy's hot right now. Period. He's hot. He's it. Adding Ric Flair into the mix, Rick has been his mentor for years. Having Christian in this gives the feud a little more, a deeper meaning to it. So listen, I'm booking it. I hope for a SummerSlam match. We'll see what happens, but definitely booking it.
People's champ, you booking it, or you bringing out that shovel?
Same like my partner says. I'm booking it. I'm booking it, and Randy's been on the best streak that he's been in a while.
Real quick, boom.
Randy is on fire. He's on fire right now, and man, I can't wait to see it. It's been a while. I can't wait to see Captain Charisma. It's the peep show, baby.
Kid Dynamite, you see your boy back in the saddle. He had an unsanctioned match that didn't necessarily go his way, but entrenched in this storyline, are you booking it, or are you bringing out that shovel?
For those who don't know, I never trust Vince McMahon with Christian's creative. It is a running gag of just what the fuck. But I will say that it does make storyline sense for the stuff to happen right now. I hope Christian's obviously going to be safe, like he's medically cleared to do some of the stuff that he's doing. They're making some pretty sharp cuts with the cameras and stuff like that to give the impact. So I don't want him to get hurt for the sake of Edge's story, right? But, bringing in Ric Flair was an interesting touch. I wasn't expecting Ric Flair to turn heel again, but then again, Ric Flair's just happy to be there. You see the smile on his face. Yeah, man,
Yeah.
But at the same time, I will book it. I hope they don't use Christian too often because it's like I don't want him to risk getting hurt. But if you want to keep adding elements that can fit into the story, all I'm going to say is Jeff Hardy, look out. Because at this rate, all the TLC 6 are getting attacked. Devon next, if he's back there. I don't know.
They're gonna tell Matt Hardy's gonna teleport. One of his gimmicks are gonna come out and then just
But in terms of how they did it, they did Beth earlier with the when we had the crowd. Got Christian now. It's cool. Don't do that. Like Edge would care at this point. Point being, what do you call it? I'll see where it goes. I don't think it's bad so far. I hope they don't drag it out, obviously. And I hope they do eventually go with the idea that Randy Orton will move on. And that'll give them the opportunity to make Edge's return more of a shock value return. So
let's stick it with you. Let's get into MVP's master plan. He has Bobby Lashley going on. Bobby Lashley, now asking for a divorce with Lana. MVP, working behind the scenes trying to get Apollo Crews. We may get a tag team. Are we booking it or bringing out that shovel?
Said Lashley and Crews as a tag team? I saw he made a offer to Shelton too.
Shelton.
Yo, I'm Shelton. I was wondering, man. They got everybody.
All the millennium.
All the millennium. If I see it, now here's the best part about this. MVP doesn't seem to be deterred yet in terms of the shift with Heyman. So I hope it keeps going. I hope MVP does make his faction. It don't have to be the Beatdown Clan, although I miss that song.
I want the Beatdown.
And that attitude. It could be similar to the Beatdown Clan. I hope people don't just, wrap it up as the Nation, the same way that they're saying every young Hispanic star is the next Eddie Guerrero. Y'all got to stop that narrative. Let them be. But I'm happy. No, man, I'm tired of this. Sammy Guevara and Angel Garza, they got their own careers to live, right?
We touched on Vince, but even Vince, it came out that Vince McMahon compared him to Eddie Guerrero. But we don't have to.
And I know. I'm just saying, y'all had Andrade doing the Three Amigos broken for like 2 years. Y'all got to stop. All right.
That's a fact.
So I'm just saying. Hey, more people. I would love it to just be like Shelton, Lashley, Apollo turning, and Street Profits get Bianca in there. Just run that shit. Run that
That's
shit.
it.
Give him the
That's
title by the end of the year. Run that
People's champ. You booking it or you burying it?
I love everything that MVP is doing so far. So if you can get, Apollo to turn and Shelton Benjamin to come as
shit.
an
Shelton.
Bobby as a main champ, and if he can turn the Street Profits eventually against the Viking Raiders, this could be some powerful TV. Everything's melanated so far in WWE, and like Joe Scott says, we're living life like it's golden, baby.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. That's like the nickname, Diamond Cutter. You got to be booking this, man.
Gotta be.
Gotta be.
I can't bury this.
Gotta
Like,
be.
why would I bury it? It's just great TV right now. MVP. We've said this for like 3 episodes straight now. MVP is just a mastermind. He doesn't need to do anything. He doesn't need to get in the ring. He doesn't need to. I was getting ready to do the hand gesture too. He doesn't need to. He doesn't need that. He doesn't need it.
Got the Kobe system.
Why does your room look like a mosaic?
Hey,
Like low key.
When we talk about Seth Rollins, it'll really get godly.
Like a whole rabbi right now. I do too. Actually.
But MVP has not only rejuvenated Lashley's role in Raw, and that also goes in correlation with Paul Heyman. Now trying to recruit Shelton Benjamin, even though I really don't want him to recruit Shelton Benjamin, only because there's really no spot for him on Raw. Like, there's no spot for him right now. I mean, hopefully, there's an avenue where he can have a spot in not necessarily a title contention, but somewhere where he's needed.
On that note, it could be MVP making multiple offers to multiple stars. Not all of them have to take it. Like, it might not end up being Apollo. It could be Shelton going after Apollo.
I would love to see Apollo turn heel only because of this. I have no problem with you being a babyface, but you are 260 pounds, jacked up. You're this athletic dude, bald head, jacked up dude, and you're smiling all the time. I want you to stop fucking smiling.
And right now, you're the better Cruz.
Right now you're the better Cruz, but that's a whole different topic. But I want you to be serious. I don't want you to just be serious in the ring. I want you to be serious, period. Like the Street Profits. I love the Street Profits. I think they're hilarious. Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins together, they're great. But I want you to be serious. Make jokes, but be serious. Bianca Belair is already serious.
Get on your rock, D-Lo, man.
Adding her into the mix is going to be great. Yes, be the D'Lo Brown, even though I couldn't take D'Lo Brown serious when he was in the Nation. Be the D'Lo Brown.
Yeah.
That's what I want you to be. But I want to take you serious. But I love it. I'll book it.
That's a fact. Dominic's call up, essentially.
That man is Stan Hansen. I saw that, Larry. That was we booking that.
We booking that. I listen. I could book it on behalf of all of us because honestly, for a person who just pulls up Survivor Series, he comes out, he does the 619 duel thing, and then he got destroyed by Brock Lesnar. Pulls back up here. He whooped Seth Rollins' ass a little bit. CM Punk got on him for not laying it in on Backstage, which I get it. He's early in the early stages, but to pull off what he needed to pull off, that was official, man. He was dodging he had R2 on speed dial. Like it was crazy. I never seen so much aerial assailants from someone who just got into the business. So I could sit there and say, anyone in disagreement?
I got a little.
Go ahead, brother.
A little one, and everybody's looking at me like they want to kill me. But I'm gonna say this.
You're good.
I'm gonna say this. I don't have a problem with the Dominic angle. I loved it. I agree with you. It takes a lot that I would say his first official night in ring was Survivor Series when he did the dual 619 in that match. And you did it against probably one of the most dangerous motherfuckers in the ring, which is Brock Lesnar. And Brock Lesnar pretty much destroyed you. And then we haven't seen it. Then you come after the Messiah. You come after the Messiah. You best not miss if you come after the Messiah. And he didn't miss. I'll give him that. He did not miss. But I want Dominic to understand this. The problem I have with you in this situation is I wouldn't have had you came out on Monday Night Raw and attack Seth Rollins like that. I think that should have been saved for another time. It was a good surprise, don't get me wrong. But I felt like they could have built this up just a little bit more. Maybe hold that off for like maybe a closer to Extreme Rules and then hit you with that.
Okay.
I felt like they executed it just a little too early. But
So you're saying book it later.
Right. I have
There we
no
go.
problem.
So the question, would you save it for a later edition of Raw or for a pay-per-view? Because we haven't seen him physically do anything on TV up until this point.
Pay-per-view would have been good.
Pay-per-view would have been a little more a little better executed only because Rollins would not expect it. It would be legit after a match. And let's just say Rollins had a hard-fought match against somebody. He's hurt. He hears Ray's music. And then out of nowhere, here comes Dominic. And then Dominic is just repeating what he did from Monday night and basically got the best in. Then you see, Murphy and everybody else come out and try to help him. And, then you see Dominic, go up the ramp or whatever. That starts the program off right there. You already know what's going into SummerSlam. So I felt like they could have held it off to Extreme Rules and then,
even during the match too, right?
Or even during the match. That would have been fine too.
Could have cost Rollins a victory.
And then hold the whole invite Mysterio and Dominic to Monday Night Raw because I feel like they're just doing this a little too early. It's a little premature to me. But everything else is great.
That's how I felt about the Christian thing too. Book it later.
Two more things to go. So we got, first and foremost, tag team turmoil. One side we have Bayley, Sasha Banks basically doing the world beater thing. It's Bayley's birthday week. She's gonna be competing on NXT tonight. However, we have the whole Billie Kay, Peyton Royce situation. And on the flip side, we have the tag team of, the tag teams of Profits, Viking Raiders. Big Show pulled up. Now you have the big dude Big Ninja from NXT. Akira Tozawa is basically a ninja.
I think we're all in agreement here.
If Vince McMahon could just read the room, with all this racial tension going on, what the fuck? First of all, this is how I know this was messed up. They put Akira Tozawa in a ninja suit, right? With all this racial tension going on. And he was like, they're not going to notice. We're just going to put the big guy in the big ninja suit. That's what they're going to look at.
You already took one commentator off the air because they made a racial slur towards Asians. And now you're basically saying, oh, no, it's okay. Like, listen.
I'm not Babatunde in the suit?
I don't even know.
I'm not
booking this at all. I just think that all parties involved, besides Tozawa, all parties involved could be doing something better. The Bayley Sasha situation, this should be, I don't even know. The whole tag division as a whole throughout the whole, out of whole of Raw, SmackDown, and NXT should just be, it's I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the tag division.
Who the fuck was in the suit?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Somebody said it was Shaq.
No, it's an NXT. It's a new NXT guy. It's an NXT recruit. Apparently,
it's a new guy. The only tall person I know is Babatunde. I thought Taco Fall was under that shit, man.
I didn't know. I honestly, I'm with Eric. I legitimately thought it was, as a basketball fan who knew that there's no possibility that he ain't gonna waste a bag on a throwaway wrestling pay-per-view. I still thought it was Shaq for some reason. In the face, it just like him.
I'm not booking this.
I'm burying it. I'm burying it myself. Bury it.
Nah, I'm gonna bury that shit 6 feet under.
We got to move that.
Can you? I think his head would pop out.
Hey, listen.
Hey, right here, 7 foot.
Listen. The tag team, situation is a thorn in my side. Just like kind of, Nia Jax is right now, thorn in Asuka's side. She basically scraped by. Well, Asuka basically scraped by with a roll-up victory. It doesn't seem like it's over. I think this may be quite divisive, though. Are we booking this?
No, yeah, Randy, you.
I think since stemming from Charlotte's statements on Backstage, Raw Talk, excuse me. I think you book it because at the end of the day, this is all leading towards Charlotte anyway. So you got to book. You got to give Nia one more chance. And like it or not, to be quite honest, like Asuka and Nia, they do kind of mesh in terms of, they do have chemistry already. So I would see that story through and see to the end of that story because, to be honest, like, I never seen Nia work better with anyone else than Asuka. So I'm going to let this story go through or see the story through. And then by the time it's over, Charlotte's going to be waiting in the doldrums. So I got to book it.
Big E.
Booking. I'm definitely booking. Listen, we all know Nia's not going to win the title, but this is just to further the storyline. Unfortunately, afterwards, you already know Asuka's going to get into a program with Charlotte. Nia Jax is going to be just on the outside looking in, probably at the back of the line. So I'm booking it.
Kid Ty, what you thinking?
You don't really get a choice in this matter because they're already going through with it. I mean, this is all about us having a choice, but they kind of have to go through with it. I agree with Randy. Asuka's best chemistry has come with not Asuka. Nia's best chemistry has come with Asuka, I should say. The matches they had in NXT were fun. The matches we're seeing on the main roster are like a little bit of that chemistry is there, but it's kind of sloppy. So it's like you hope that they have the better performance in their last encounter, which is most likely Extreme Rules, right? And then the big money matches with Charlotte. My hope is that Asuka, after this victory, uses what she went through in Nia to basically go, yeah, fuck this, I'm not dropping this title, and just beat Charlotte. But you know how this is gonna go. This
I don't think Charlotte needs to win though.
I'm gonna keep
Charlotte going for 12, and you know how we feel about 12 right now.
Yeah. That's. Listen, I'm gonna keep it real with you because originally when I brought this up and I thought of it, I was like, I don't know if I'm messing with it, but in the same framework, when you mentioned the Dominic storyline, I kind of have a similar feeling about this one. It's not necessarily about burying it; it's just the timing, because you just had the double count out like this past Sunday. You don't want to do a rematch straight out and out, and if
The
you
rematch wasn't needed.
And if you do, like, I feel like there was a better way to go about it. Like, in my mind, again, if you're trying to build up a champion, a conclusive finish, always. Like, you could barely win. You can have an Undertaker Triple H type of victory circa WrestleMania where he's literally lying on the floor and the loser is the one that's standing up and walking out. That's how I feel like they could possibly book this. But in the same, like that's at best if you want to basically, just accelerate it to like one night and then like Monday night the very next night. But if you're gonna do something like this, then you make it marinate a little more, because Nia's Nia, and we discussed this this past weekend in the Backlash review show. This rivalry has been kind of wonky, especially, similar to their in-ring presence. It's like 2 weeks they're personally feuding. It's them two exclusively. And then you have Charlotte in the mix. And then, like, it's just Charlotte with Nia Jax coming and interfering like it's 2K. You got to kind of make sure that, like, we care about Nia. Even though she's not going to win the title, it got to make us feel like we care. So, like, at least to me, I'm like almost regrettably saying book it, but it's like I don't know. Switching.
I do have a question on that though. Just before we
go.
go, do you think they're gonna have it at SummerSlam where like Asuka loses the belt because of Kyrie?
I wouldn't even do that. I wouldn't even do that.
I'm not saying not to do it. I'm not saying I wouldn't book it. I'm saying do you think they will do it?
He's trying to say, like, if do you think it's a possibility? I think it, unfortunately speaking, it's a possibility only for the fact that, and we're going to get into it later with SmackDown. It seems like, the WWE right now has no issue with splitting up tag teams that can do well on their own, because there's a way of going about tag teams that could be perfect apart and perfect together. But if you're going to sit there and say, if they could be perfect apart, let's have them rival together, they're going to do it. So unfortunately speaking, I think that there is a possibility. If I'm a betting man, I go 50-50 right now. You'd have to basically ask me in July, but there is definitely a possibility. Moving on, we have NXT and AEW going on tonight. On one side, you have Les Sex Gods versus the Best Friends, number one contendership for the AEW Tag Team Championships. And they have also some ongoing storylines. Colt Cabana's, basically being courted to become a member of Dark Order after his losing streak. All these different situations. And on the opposite end, on NXT, you flip a channel, you see Breezango against Imperium. You see basically the continuing feud of the couples, Mia Yim, Keith Lee, Johnny Gargano, and Candice LeRae. What's our must-watch tonight?
I'm going to go with AEW. I'm going to go with AEW this week. I think AEW is a must-watch, only because there's an interesting dynamic within AEW as far as the tag team division goes. One thing that they're doing is that they're highlighting other tag teams. The Best Friends are getting a shot at, being the number one contenders. And if they book it right, they should have the Best Friend go over. Best Friend should go over. But I know they have an ongoing feud with Jericho in the Inner Circle because Orange Cassidy is involved in that. So by hook or by crook, they should win. And then when the championship match happens, Jericho and Sammy Guevara have to interfere somewhere to further the storyline. There has to be some type of continuity there. As far as Colt Cabana joining Dark Order, that's really the least of my interest, at least in my opinion. That's least of my interest because they haven't really highlighted Dark Order that much. They were kind of inconsistent with Dark Order. It was mostly, they focused on most of the Elite, which we all know why they focused on them, the Elite and the Inner Circle. So these are the only two factions that when I turn on AEW, those are the only two I care about. To be honest with you, since Double or Nothing, Brody Lee really hasn't been doing anything. I haven't seen him on TV. Maybe I've missed something, but I haven't seen him on TV. Dark Order really hasn't been, highlighted as much as the Inner Circle and the Elite have been for months. So that really doesn't interest me. They would have to put Colt in Dark Order in a certain way for me to really get interested in this.
So I have a follow-up before basically kick it to the rest. You mentioned the fact that soon as people sign with AEW, they basically get into that first feud, and after that, essentially they kind of get lost a little bit with the Dark Order, with Brody Lee and the Dark Order especially. Where do you see FTR? At least in the wait for their ultimate feud with the Young Bucks, because they're not just gonna go straight into the Young Bucks. There's gonna be some time there's gonna be some interim where they're gonna have to feud with certain people like QT Marshall.
With them going to AEW, this is the match they wanted. This is the match the Young Bucks wanted. You said they might not go into it right away. They're gonna go into it right away. They want this. They want to strike while they have it. They might give them a few matches underneath their belt. They might sit there and try to, build them up, have the promo work going, have everything going for them. But eventually, not even eventually, I'll give it, we're in June right now. I think their next biggest show is probably somewhere in July, middle of July. I'm going to give it till then that we're going to hear about a match. It's not going to be televised. They're going to save this for their pay-per-view. But FTR, they're not going to get lost in the shuffle. I feel like their name is just too big, and their ability in the ring and who they cater to for the fans, and they have fan support on top of that. Most of the people that came in really don't have too much fan support. I mean, the last person that really came in is the AEW champion, which is John Moxley. He had fan support, which is why he's still on TV. Everybody else doesn't really have that much fan support behind them, so it's like they can have a one and done match, and you'll be like, you know what? I haven't seen this person in a little while on TV, or I haven't seen look at Darby Allin. Darby Allin is nowhere to be found. Somebody put an APB out for him.
I mean, last week they kind of had
he was in a match last week.
Doing the skateboard thing with Tony Hawk.
Okay, so he was in something last week.
I'm not gonna lie. To be fair, to play devil's advocate, although Moxley has like some fan base to him, they've been doing similar things with him as well, especially as champion. So
they have.
Sure.
It's the 50-50 booking that they're doing.
Yeah.
They're doing 50-50 booking. It's like 1 week you'll see this person, we'll pencil him in for a match, we'll get him in a storyline, and then they're doing basically the same thing WWE is doing right now. They're inconsistent with the storylines.
What did I say 2 episodes?
You did?
I agree with you. I agree with you when I said it. But they're inconsistent with the storylines, and on top of that, not only are they inconsistent, they're putting so much focus on this elite inner circle Matt Hardy thing, and it's just not getting anywhere. It's not getting anywhere.
And
that's why I don't agree with you.
And in the interim, there's whatchamacallit, they're appearing on AEW Dark. You see QT Marshall, you see Dustin Rhodes, and those people basically gaining in the ranks in that vein. With that said, People's Champ, AEW, NXT. Tonight you have one TV. Stick it with it for 2 hours. What you watching?
Gun to my head, I'm watching NXT. And the reason why is because they at least have some form of structure in their booking as compared to AEW. AEW over the last, for a while, they booked themselves to a corner. Like, now you have Cage on, but you're not really hyping up that match as much as you should. You know, Pac, is going missing. There's certain stars that gave you a little bit of spark, and I'm not sure what's going on with that. And then even with the Elite, with everything going on between Hangman Page, like, that story should have been told already. At some point, they should have just lost those titles a long time ago to start that feud between him and they should have started that a while ago. The only thing, for them is fortunate. For them, the only thing that's been going for them right now is the female division. They've been at least the most consistent, which is progressive and good. But if you're from the male's perspective, it's sad because you're having them outdo you, and at least they're more consistent with their work rate. Now, as opposed to NXT, tonight there's a lot going on tonight. There's a lot of stories that needs to be told. Karrion Kross, and Adam Cole, you know what time it is. Tick tock. In terms of that title run, I know Eric, you AE baby, but Karrion Kross,
life, man.
Coming through hell.
But I gotta say, Karrion Kross, man.
To borrow a former phrase of the Big Red Machine, through hellfire and brimstone, he's coming. And Finn Balor, he made the challenge to Keith Lee, so we don't know if he's gonna accept that. Even though I know he's not done with Gargano. And Tegan Knox and I think Slashy Blackheart, they have a tag team match tonight against Sasha and Bailey, which is going to be pretty good. And the women have been killing it in NXT, so I gotta give it up to them. I gotta see what for
NXT, Team NXT for Randy. Dynamite. Yeah, your grandpa walks into the room. 7:55. He's like, "Yo, I want to watch some wrestling tonight. Live wrestling tonight. It's 2 channels. Which channel are you putting it on? AEW or NXT?"
The yellow shit. That's probably what he would say. Honestly, because
both.
I mean,
technically
one is more yellow than the other. It's like
say black and gold.
It's like a Pikachu and a goddamn Umbreon Pokemon. It's like, yeah, they both got yellow, but you know which one you see first.
Yeah.
But for me, I would say NXT only because like the concept of Karrion Kross going right away at the championship with Adam Cole is obviously very interesting. We kind of called it that, like, you have to make him a big deal right off the bat, just the way his presence is. And it seems as though they're going straight for the jugular with this one, just having him go right after Adam Cole. Whether he wins or loses, I think he'll be better off for it, just so people know this is a presence. Like, he has time. He just got here. He could win the belt now. He could win the belt later, But it's interesting to see them go for that booking decision right away. Let's hope they don't mess that up. As far as the tag team championship goes, this women's tag team championship we know is a walking disaster. But at least they're finally a year removed from making their promise, letting Sasha and Bayley as tag champions defend it wherever they want. Because the last time they were on NXT, prior to the Survivor Series invasion and all that, they had these belts. Now they're actually getting to defend them the way they wanted to a year ago. And my, oh my, I'm going to have a heart attack with Shotzi and Tegan Nox in the ring, as well as Bayley and Sasha in the ring. But that's a tag team I didn't know I wanted to see two people together so badly until it happened. So, especially with them being in the crowd and everything, I'm happy for them.
You put chocolate in my peanut butter. You put peanut butter in my chocolate. The reasons. What's going on?
And I want us from a work rate standpoint.
It's actually not really a good
no,
thing.
But
I
appreciate it. But I do want to see it from a work rate standpoint. I do want to see it from that. I still think this belt needs some major overhauling, because that's the team. I don't even know have they been building that alliance of Shotzi and Tegan, or is it very makeshift?
Last couple of weeks they have.
Yeah.
Okay, so at least for right now, at least they have a spot. Hopefully they continue on with it, because I just like the idea of them both coming out on a tank every week. That makes me happy. As far as AEW goes, I can't really say much, because the booking has kind of just been, like Eric said, very flip-floppity. It's like you care one week, you don't care, which is why, I made the mention earlier that I can't agree with Eric on the whole, when you brought up, will the revival get lost in the shuffle? Everybody is viable to get lost in the shuffle, one. And two, the only way you're not viable to get lost in the shuffle is if you have, like, a foundation of fan support that, you can go back on. Like, Randy Orton was lost in the shuffle. If Randy Orton can be lost in the shuffle, anyone can be lost in the shuffle. If Undertaker can be lost in the shuffle back in the early 2000s, to the point where he's going after the WCW tag titles, anyone can get lost in the shuffle. So as far as I'm concerned, especially with the revival, FTR, regardless of what you call them, I still call them the Mechanics. No one's going to get that reference. But those guys are really good. Everybody knows that they're really good, but their namesake is on the line here. And if AEW were to screw them over by basically having them come to the other company on all the hype that they were built off of, and then one week we care, and the next week we don't care the next week, and then they come back on week 4, it's like, yeah, they're going to lose all their hype. Especially if you're bringing them in for one feud. It kind of reminds me when they traded AJ to Raw. You brought him over for one match. He just so happened to work a couple other angles, but there was no point of AJ going over to Raw. And that shows now, because look at what he's been doing on SmackDown since coming back. The man's got a fire under his ass so hot he doesn't know whether it's the fire or some sort of genital disease. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, we're at a situation where it's like, you have to make these stars because it's so easy to break them, especially with everybody's opinions shifting day and night on Twitter. And for the most part, you can ignore that. But sometimes if it stays consistent for long enough, there's smoke to the fire. There's something wrong. You don't have to have them on the program every single week doing the same exact thing, but you have to keep their names relevant and show that you're invested in these talents, because otherwise you're just signing people for hype. And then they're waiting for another spot to come in, and that won't even last that very long. And that could be 7 months removed from when they had that fire. So, and
also to your point, basically anybody being viable. I mean, at least from my impression, for him to be featured prominent on a prominent North American television show for once since forever. Look at a guy like Kenny Omega. He's supposed to be regarded as the best wrestler in the world. He's in a tag team that is basically waiting on
a makeshift tag team that,
to your point,
for all intents and purposes, this man was the hottest star in wrestling only 2 years ago. He was the IWGP champion. He was beating some of the best talents in the world. People have been hyping him up for 4 years, and now you don't feel the hype of Kenny Omega. ever since the Jericho match, you didn't even feel it. Like, you didn't, when the Jericho rematch happened in AEW, you didn't feel hype because it was Omega versus Jericho. You felt hype because Jericho's on his first AEW pay.
Yeah.
So
keeping it pushing, because we could talk till the cows come home about the whole AEW thing. And again, Backstage Brawl, we got love for AEW. We do. We do. Trust us. We do. We just want to see it. We just want
to do well.
We just want to see we just want to see it be booked better. Y'all get the reference. Moving it on to SmackDown. We have a lot of things going on. You have Braun Strowman basically successfully defending his title, and potentially may see Bray Wyatt maybe in a week or so, maybe this coming Friday. But I want to focus on two particular things on SmackDown before we get into Taker. Miz and Morrison's next move, and AJ's IC title coronation. Now, if we were to book Miz and Morrison right now, based off of how they interacted this past weekend, how do you rectify or even just justify what went on Sunday?
I think it's time for. You signed John Morrison for a reason. Look, I love John Morrison. I love the Miz. I love them together. AKA the Bro Dynasty. That the part of that quartet. But you brought back Morrison for a reason. You didn't bring him back just to be with the Miz. Sure, the storyline when you reintroduced him, it merited that when he was going against Bray. But now, moving forward, you got your tag titles. You got to relive, the greatest tag team of the 21st century. Now you have to figure out what's next, because now you didn't bring John Morrison back just to be fodder and to be a novelty act or even a comedy act, to say the least. You brought him back to win championships. So there's no other way to start the dissension by being with Braun, and for that matter, to book that, you have to begin the dissension. And to further Miz as a great wrestler, and I got to say this, he is criminally underrated in terms of how much he's progressed, especially over the last 5 years. Miz got stuff in his book that I was like, okay, all right. I see, you having doors with Maurice has got you a little, out your comfort zone. So
what I'm smelling is you want singles feud. You want that singles feud.
We need a singles feud.
Okay.
And I think they can bring the best out of each other, not just by being friends. And it doesn't have to be a blood feud either, but it's just more so I'm better than you. We can do a series, and it's not personal. I came back for championships.
I ain't gonna. What you guys think? You guys agree with it, or?
I agree with it. They've done all they could do as a tag team. To be honest, they've had 2 shots at the tag titles. They have one. I think one. They had definitely at Mania, and I think one before Mania or after Mania. But they did that. They went after the Universal title. So what more can you do with these 2 guys as a tag team? There's really not much more you can do. It's time for them to have that match between each other. And like my partner said, you brought Morrison in basically to give him the Drew treatment. You've seen what he was doing on the independent scene. You've seen what he was doing for so long outside of WWE. He's developed his craft. He's gotten better. It's time to push this man as a single star. Again, I hate the fact that Miz is not Universal Champion. I feel like he should have at least gotten a run within the past 5 years.
As I mean, we got Braun.
Yeah, we got Braun. But we've been preaching Braun, before in the past.
Yeah.
And now we've been in the same sentiments. We were preaching Miz to have another WWE or Universal title run, and it just didn't happen. They slapped the IC title on him. We got into a feud with the Shield. He had, he was having 570 turns like Big Show. So it happens. I mean, but this needs to happen. I think in this case, who do you turn? The real question is, who do you turn face or who do you turn heel?
Oh yeah,
That's the real question.
I'm ready for that. I'm ready to answer that.
Miz.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Kid Ty.
This match on paper is a blessing in disguise. The Braun Strowman handicap match for the Universal Championship. And the reason why is because the Universal Championship's dead in the water. In terms of it as people, I don't even consider it a belt anymore. I find it ironic that Miz and Morrison have only been competing for blue championships this past year. But for me, there are two things that I take note of with this feud that can help, and that's the surrounding context. First and foremost, we don't have many contenders for this Universal Championship period, okay? Everyone's focusing on Braun and Bray. No one's focusing on what happens after Braun and Bray, right? All the singles talent on SmackDown, on paper you think SmackDown would be secure, have plenty of contenders for any of these guys to go after. But the reality of the situation is that they don't have much of a direction. And there's a looming Roman Reigns coming back also that supposedly will happen. So, or maybe not, since the second COVID thing just happened recently.
Chilling my ass home.
Seriously.
Having more twins.
Orton and Roman have the same energy. It is hilarious.
Yeah.
My point being, you need to build a foundation for a real division. The fact that AJ Styles has moved down to the Intercontinental Championship division immediately brings eyes on it. And he can do with the Intercontinental Championship what he should have been able to do with the U.S. Championship a couple years ago when he was on SmackDown, what he should have done with the U.S. Championship when he was on Raw, and making it that belt where these are where you're going to see some of the best work rate matches. He's going to push people to a different level. If you have a bad match with AJ Styles, it might be your fault, unless AJ's sick. Otherwise, AJ might Jordan that shit. Point being that
if he's sick, he gonna do it.
Now, why does that matter? You have this SmackDown has this position right now where if they start building a universal title foundation with a whole bunch of people, being in the secondary title position, I do say secondary title, not mid card, is not a bad thing because of who's holding it right now, the amount of spots you can get, the spotlight you can get with everybody focusing on the talents now with the quarantine. You're in a good spot no matter whether you're going after the Universal or Intercontinental Championship if you do this right. And in the case of Miz and Morrison, they will be going in those two separate lanes. John Morrison should be the face in this feud. And the reason why I say that is because John Morrison already came with face fanfare. And if there's any person who feels the need to turn on somebody, it would be the Miz. Now, I'm not saying Morrison can't turn heel. I'm saying this is what I prefer. Because remember, a couple years ago, Morrison was the one that was driven out of the company by Miz. I think Morrison had Miz's last match. So Morrison has all the he could be like, I only did all of this to get my name back to where it should be. I don't need you anymore. But in the same token, Miz can easily turn on Morrison and say, I only used you for a cheap pop in the same fashion. And Miz can go back on his 2016 energy where he should have been going after the WWE title in the first place. So it can work either way. It can work perfectly either way. But the best part about it is that if you do split them now, you're going to recognize Miz again as a singles talent, which nobody has recently. You look at the roster, be honest with yourself. When you look at people like Cesaro, Shinsuke, this and that, you know they're good, but you don't recognize them for their value in the moment. You only recognize them for their value when you've seen what they did years ago when they were on their own. I had that recent revelation watching a lot of Cesaro. I was telling you guys on the phone call before last podcast, which I missed. My perfect attendance is off. But, I was saying Cesaro and Cena were having match of the years in 2015, 2014, right? He was the next one up in 2016, and then it fell off because they roped him in a team with Sheamus, which, while good, overstayed its welcome. And since then, people have been clamoring for Cesaro to do something to the point where they even wanted a Kings of Wrestling reunion with Cassius Ohno, who's no longer in the company. But he hasn't been seen like that in years. But you look at the roster and you go, yo, if this was GM mode or Universe mode in a video game, be like, yo, of course I'm pushing Cesaro in this spot. But you look at the roster right now, you don't see Shinsuke for his value. You don't see Cesaro for his value. And I don't blame you because they don't push him that way.
So to table that and switching gears to AJ's coronation, there's, you know, a lot of people are wondering essentially, you know, what's next after Bryan, if there is a next after Bryan. Would you say that it basically ties into that?
Yes, and I think they tie into each other fairly well because with all the singles talent that you can focus on, rebuild in this quarantine, and get these crazy dope matches to continue the momentum from AJ and Daniel Bryan, or give some momentum to a belt that's pretty dead. With Morrison and Miz splitting up, them as singles talent will give you some longevity for the rest of the year, as well as pushing some of the other people like Cesaro. AJ versus Cesaro for the Intercontinental Championship. Come on. AJ versus Shinsuke for the Intercontinental Championship, where Shinsuke is actually taken seriously as a threat. Chad Gable. I know Mustafa Ali went to Raw recently, but that was also a possibility up until recently. You also have Drew Gulak, who's slowly creeping in people's minds as a household name on SmackDown, a recognizable name. Daniel Bryan isn't done. Daniel Bryan can compete for any of these championships. And those are just the names that I can name off the top of my head. You also have an incoming Matt Riddle, right? You have the possibility of someone else moving up from NXT, like a Velveteen Dream, assuming, you know, all his issues are cleared out, you know, assuming there are issues.
Oh God, wait, time out. It's Riddle's debut this week.
Oh,
I could imagine like in the coronation, he just pulls up and AJ is like, "What? Who are you?" It's like, bro.
I also want the fan there, so
Thank
both
you,
of their
bro.
hairs can just bask in the fan, like their manes just flowing, like AJ did at Mania.
Maybelline? Just maybe it's Maybelline commercial. Like it's
Manliest Maybelline commercial you've ever seen in your life.
just like,
But
bro, I just wanted to congratulate you. Like,
My point.
so,
exactly.
like, you know, it's so awesome. He's like, what the hell are you doing?
Like, you got all this stuff going on. You have all these singles guys you can use in a singles, and that Sheamus, Jeff Hardy. If you couldn't ask for a better cast of people to make you care about both of these belts, Intercontinental in the short term, right? Universal in the long term. You want to make people care about this Blueberry Jam title? Use your singles talent.
It's your move, Bruce Pritchard. It's your move. I do want to. Speaking of Bruce Pritchard, I do want to shift gears here to a person that he worked really well alongside and did some projects with, The Undertaker. You know, this upcoming week, it will see the finale of the Taker documentary. We had The Last Dance. We are having The Last Ride with The Undertaker. Just your quick thoughts, your expectations for what may go on.
I'm interested to see this episode. I'm interested as hell to see this episode because now we're gonna see if anyone saw the last episode was it 4? Episode 4. You saw at the end they cut the camera off right when Taker was going to AJ, and then when they previewed it, they were saying that there's nobody better right now than AJ Styles, which I think we all can agree is the truth. I'm interested as hell to see this. I'm interested to see how the conversation went down to even get this match going because, I mean, I know the three of us, you know, when we heard Boneyard match, we were all confused. I was like, what the hell is a Boneyard match? Like, we didn't know what was going on. We even complained about it. We was like, yo, this is not going to go down the way it's supposed to go down. And it went the way it was supposed to, and it was great. But I'm very interested to see how this goes down. Now, and then we get the question answered for us. Is he done? Is he officially done, or does he have 1 or 2 left in him?
For real, like,
I'll finish off with Ty.
I definitely think so too. Like, especially because obviously we all saw WrestleMania, so
Yeah.
The way he wrote in and the way he wrote off, he's had perfect send-offs before. But I thought when he wrote off at the end of the night, how he did, I thought, to me, that was basically saying, I'm done. This is my last match. This was the last ride. Because you wouldn't bring the motorcycle for that reason if it wasn't going to be the last ride. But then again, stranger things have happened. But to me, I felt like it was the last ride. And the fact that watching that match had every element of Taker that you can possibly ask for. And AJ was a great partner. Like, who could have asked for a better dance partner than AJ Styles?
You couldn't have asked for a better opponent.
You couldn't ask for a better dance partner than AJ, which is why I wasn't worried if they were going to get into the ring together anyway. But I'm glad it wasn't in the ring. But either way, I wasn't worried because you had AJ. Like, this is in the bag. Like, it's going to be good. So I do think it's the last match of his. I hope it is, to not, like, lure me in like that and say, gotcha. No, I hope it is the last. But he did also say, keep watching until the end before. So that's something to technically keep going in your mind.
We did have these conversations earlier at the start, you know, just a will he, won't he sort of deal. And, you know, obviously we've had many different inferences of like what he may do. And he did say, keep watching. We have approached the final episode. Has the opinion changed, Ty? Or what are you thinking?
We had these conversations. This is true. I still stand by what I said before. I believe what I said before. If not, I'll just make it official.
No.
Yes. The Undertaker. Triple H had a really good phrase because they've been foreshadowing AJ throughout the entire documentary. If you've been paying close attention, even after the Roman match, it's like, damn, I wish I could have worked with that AJ Styles. You know, he's the last thing there. Why am I talking like AJ? Talking about AJ. He's the last thing to Shawn Michaels we have, which, you know, in terms of at the time when he said it, yes. Now it's kind of a little bit different. Sorry, Dolph, John Morrison, the whole Bro crew. Seriously, what?
Yeah.
What
Even Matt Cardona.
Right, Matt Cardona, man. But yeah, Undertaker has been chasing a dragon. He's been chasing his story tale ending. And, you know, I think that if it was his last match at WrestleMania, his streak of momentum was actually good going into it. I mean, the match with Roman, teaming with Roman going against Drew and Shane McMahon, Taker had something to prove, and then finding on the documentary, he was still banged up, which we kind of should have figured, but the fact that he was still banged up and he looked that good, it wasn't like, oh, you know, he was in a tag team spot, so of course he looked good. I mean, yeah, that's part of it. But in the moments he was in there, my man was angry. Like, I've never seen shoulder blocks that vicious. You know, his punches were kind of back. You know, everything was kind of cool. And you know what? Like I said multiple times on this podcast, I still hold him accountable for a lot of the bad decisions he made. I know he feels in debt to Vince. You know, I know it's not about the money for him, but there are a lot of decisions he didn't have to make. And I think the recent streak of momentum between the Roman match, where he basically showed everybody, no, I still got it. It wasn't my fault what happened with Goldberg happened, because everybody blamed him on that day. They said, oh, they're both old. I was like, no. Goldberg messed up, whether it was him banging the door or him getting concussed. Well, the second one was an accident. Like, it was his fault. And Taker couldn't work with that. Had that been anybody else, because Taker's been asking for great workers. I think there was a list last year released where Taker talked about wanting to work with Drew, wanting to work with Daniel Bryan, wanting to work with AJ Styles. I think Alistair was on the list. But, you know, like, he asked for these good workers because Taker has been working his ass off to get back into a shape to redeem himself. And I do agree that him having more matches is a problem. But I do give credit to Taker for at least trying to rectify the wrongs by getting different workers. And he only accepted the Goldberg thing because it was offered to him. It wasn't even a thought in his mind. He was like, okay, I'm going to accept it because when do I get another chance to do this? And I still hold him accountable for that decision. But the fact that he's been on a good streak between the AJ thing, the Roman thing, it's not a bad way to go out considering you've had a bad streak of momentum prior to that, right?
Mm.
Now, if they were to have him have another match at Survivor Series, or just base the whole pay-per-view around him and make it a celebration of The Undertaker, right, where he has one final ride, that's fine. If his last match was the last ride match, I'm cool with it. If he ends up having one last match, hopefully with AJ or somebody who can give him that, like one of his desired opponents that can give him the match he wants, I'm cool with it. But the thing is that it has to end this year. One way or another, it has to end this year. And if they want to give him a proper send-off at Survivor Series and at Mania, cool. If they want to give him the Survivor Series send-off as a celebration and the Mania celebration. No, when I said Mania, I meant as a celebration, not a match, by the way. But if they want to give him a send-off, it's got to be this year. Mania's got to be the last of it. Taker rides off into the sunset. I hope he goes through the ring and goes back to hell. That's how I want it to go out again. Just like WrestleMania 33. Yeah, just go out that way. You know how much Taker means to me. I respect the fact that he's holding himself accountable for being a dumbass those years and taking a lot of those matches. But it's got to be the end this year. No more chasing the dragon.
Real quick, I kind of like as you were doing this thing, I was thinking of this way that in my mind, and I've thought this for a while, but I didn't know how to basically like approach it. But they've told the story with AJ already is how to send Taker off through Survivor Series. Now it's gonna be tough because there's no fans, and if they're at Performance Center, I'm not sure if they could pull this off, but a buried alive match in which AJ wins. But the catch is that like in the final moments, similar to the storytelling that they've been doing with Edge and Randy Orton, I feel like they could make like Taker could like AJ could just be going off. And like Taker's like, if you're a man, you can bury it. Like he before the match he makes it known that it's gonna be his last match. And then in the match he's like, if you're a man, you're gonna bury me. And then AJ buries him. And right as he buries him, similar to, shades of, whatchamacallit, WrestleMania, the graveyard match, he reappears. But after they, pour in the dirt and stuff like that. But he reappears not as the Undertaker, not as the, the dead man, but as Biker Taker. And like you see AJ Styles at the graveyard site on the right, stage left. And then like Taker is at the center, and he's like, what the hell? Like lights go out after he buries him, and everyone's like, what the hell? What the hell? Lights go on, and he's like, and he looks, he turns, and Taker's looking right dead in the eye, and this is Mark Calloway just looking at him on some "you got the juice now" type shit. Turns away, puts the fists up.
Even to the extent like he's just wearing regular clothes, not even like if you bury Taker that way, and Taker just appears behind him like, oh, and AJ, hilariously, he's just like, oh shit, what the
why
Taker just
again?
Taker's in regular clothes, basically like in his beanie, like what I got going on, and his regular clothes, and he just puts his hand out and goes, thank you, and then you just watch Taker walk away into the mist. That would be a hell of a way to conclude. That would be a cool part 2 to the Boneyard match. I'm not going to sit here and lie.
You gotta do this.
Finally going.
You gotta do this for everybody who grew up basically on Undertaker. You have to give us the feeling that we got at that WrestleMania 30. You have to make us cry. That's basically what it has to happen. You have to basically tell us, listen, grow up. Your childhood's done. In so many words, you have to force us to grow up because that's what it is. They've been teasing this, and I want them. And we've talked about this on the show so many times. We've talked about how storylines are so inconclusive. They're not, they're just not there. They already teased it at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view that AJ was still haunted by this. I can definitely quote that I've said a couple of episodes ago that they should do an AJ Styles versus Undertaker match and let this be the one where they put his career on the line. And AJ is the one to take his career. I've said this. And I still believe that. Whether it happened at Survivor Series, whether it happens at Mania.
Survivor Series.
Survivor Series would be the more than likely pay-per-view. Only because that's where he debuted. So
to the day.
Exactly. So it would make more sense to do it there than Mania because the Mania magic is gone. We already know that already.
And who knows? AJ being Intercontinental Champion right now, getting a bunch of banger matches might be used as part of the storyline going into it. Like he'll drop the belt before and be like, "Why do I even need to fight you?"
Right. And then, but
You
the
need
thing
to fight
is
me.
that the thing is that, and this is where the Mustafa Ali thing comes into play, which I hate that he's gone to Raw. Him being the hacker now, since they just revealed that, him being the hacker, he could have been haunting AJ for months, just dropping. They could have just dropped pictures of Taker, like how, remember when Taker came back for WrestleMania 20? He came back as the dead man,
Haunting Kane.
and they were haunting Kane. They could have done that same exact thing with AJ, but have Mustafa Ali do it as the hacker, saying that I know the truth. I know how to beat you. I know how to do this, and this is how I'm doing it. You know, everything, just clips of that match, clips of The Undertaker throughout his career. They could have booked it like that, and to the point where AJ just got so frustrated that he just, for 1 second, took his eye off the Intercontinental Championship because he's just so focused on Taker. And then drop it to Mustafa Ali. Let's just say Mustafa Ali. Drop it to Mustafa Ali, and then let's just say not the next week on SmackDown after he lost it, but the week after, he just comes out pissed and just says, "Listen, I'm calling out The Undertaker. This is it. I'm tired of being haunted by him. We're going to settle this right here, right now. I want your career." Program right there.
And you play it off as like, the reason why Taker sent those messages isn't because he wanted a rematch with AJ. He wanted AJ to put him away.
That's
Yeah.
why he's a bear.
That literally
Program.
that's the program, man.
Like maybe Taker
definitely-
regrets winning the first time, and he just wants AJ to put him away.
Yeah, man.
Program.
We gotta table it. Definitely do want to do a review show of the finale. You know, it's only right.
It's only right.
It's only right. Don't know when it's gonna be airing. It may be airing probably next Tuesday.
Sunday,
next
I think.
It's Sunday.
No. Our review, not
Oh,
that.
our
Review.
at Sunday, probably.
But that being said, from us to you guys, we bid you adieu. Golden Child, People's Champ, Kid Dynamite, Diamond Cutter,